War replaces the arena, but the rules feel familiar. A rigged map, cameras everywhere, and a capital that confuses control with truth. Mockingjay Part 2 picks up where the last chapter left off, Katniss Everdeen recovering from Peeta's strangling in District 13's infirmary, and moves like a final march through a country built to watch people suffer. President Alma Coin has an army, Plutarch Heavensby has a plan, and Katniss has two promises burning at the same time: kill President Snow and try to give Peeta back to himself. Peeta's mind is a battlefield. Hijacked with Tracker Jacker venom, his memories of Katniss have been weaponized. Love was edited into fear. In therapy, he asks, real or not, mantra to untangle lies from life. The line becomes a pulse for the film. Katniss visits him with bruises fatting and voice raw. She sees a boy rewired into a blade. She also sees the person who once threw her a lifeline of burned bread. The mission ahead will have to make space for both kinds of truth. Coin concentrates power like rationed oxygen. Her speeches promise unity and justice. Her war room diagram turns districts into arrows. She needs the Mockingjay to sell an endgame the public will accept. Haymitch and Effie work triage at the edges, one translating Coin's strategy into something Katniss can bear, the other dressing grief and stubbornness in a uniform that fits. Gale becomes Coin's favored instrument, a strategist willing to consider tactics that frighten Katniss, particularly when civilian casualties are measured against ends. Katniss wants a direct route to Snow. Coin gives her a camera. The Star Squad, Katniss, Gale, Finnick, Cressida and her film crew, Boggs, Coin's best commander, and a handful of soldiers will move into the capital not as frontline fighters but as propaganda, walking propos to be broadcast as they liberate blocks. Their real map is marked with pods, GameMaker-designed booby traps buried under streets and behind doors. Panem doesn't need arenas. It turned the capital itself into one. Advancing block by block, they trip pods that fire machine gun crosshairs, unleash a wave of black tar that drowns anything without elevation, and spring explosive tiles that carve soldiers into edits. Boggs loses his legs to mine and dying, transfers command of the mission's holographic holo to Katniss. Coin wanted a symbol, she just got a commander. The squad presumes the new order is to continue the show. Katniss quietly decides the show is cover. She will use the team to hunt Snow's mansion. The capital's version of spectacle persists. Citizens in white march or run, peacekeepers barricade or break. Underneath, a growing underground resistance moves supplies and secrets. Tigress, an ex-stylist surgically altered into a tiger and discarded by the capital, shelters the squad in her shop. Meanwhile, Snow keeps broadcasting dinner party calm, toasting the final defenses while bleeding from illness. He believes terror will preserve him because it always has. In the sewers, the movie's most punishing sequence arrives. With daylight streets laced by pods, Cressida leads the squad into tunnels toward the mansion. The game makers answer with mutts, pale, eyeless, human-scaled lizards that hunt by sound. The fight is a horror film with tactics. Night vision lights are useless against bodies built for darkness. The squad is cut down in a stairwell of teeth. Finnick, who spent 2 films carrying trauma like a second name, meets his end buying seconds for his friends, slashing, shouting, then vanishing beneath mutts and into a memory montage shaped like surf. Katniss drops a holo set to Nightlock, Nightlock, Nightlock. The blast closes the tunnel and caps the chapter with ash. The survivors reach the surface in a capital where panic looks like choreography. Snow opens his gates to accept refugee children as human shields. A hovercraft with capital markings drops silver parachutes, the same gift design viewers know from sponsor packages. The trinkets detonate among the children. When medics run in, a second wave of bombs triggers. Prim, now a trained healer who ran toward screams, stands in the blast. Katniss sees her sister's face one last time and then only fire. The scene rewrites the story's center of gravity. The rebellion didn't just cost lives, it cost the reason Katniss had for living them. Snow's regime collapses overnight. He is arrested and housed in his own greenhouse, coughing blood into the scent of roses. Coin steps into daylight as the new provisional authority and names a final measure: one last Hunger Games using the capital's children as tributes, revenge framed as justice. Victors are asked to vote. Johanna says yes for rage. Inabaria says yes for survival calculus. Peeta says no because cycles don't break themselves. Katniss, hollowed by Prim's death and calculating in a new key, says yes for Prim, a phrase that is acid on the table. It sounds like vengeance. It also buys her access to the execution dais. In the courtyard, Snow waits tied to a post while a crowd seethes. Katniss approaches with bow raised. Snow meets her eyes and laughs softly. He had told her the truth in the greenhouse. He doesn't lie about what he does. Coin on a high balcony watches like she's already history. Katniss pivots. She fires an arrow through Coin's heart. Snow dies anyway, smothered by the mob or his own blood. The camera doesn't litigate. Violence finds its targets and its author. Katniss is tackled, detained, then released into a world too shocked to choose immediately between punishment and gratitude. The war ends because the rules that made it possible lost their author, twice in the same breath. Aftermath is not catharsis, it is inventory. Plutarch via letter and counsel relayed by Haymitch frames Coin's death as the only move that could have stopped a new tyranny from wearing a kinder color. The games are abolished, a new charter will be written, but the human ledger costs the most. Effie collects herself into dignity and farewells. Haymitch drinks less because someone still needs him. Gale gets a job in the new capital's security apparatus. He and Katniss do not find a bridge back to what they were. Real or not real becomes a therapy language between Katniss and Peeta as he relearns his life memory by memory. Some answers land yes, enough land yes to make a future. Katniss returns to the bones of District 12. The Victor's village is quieter than ghosts. She and Buttercup meet in a scene the story owes them. The cat howls for a girl who isn't there. Katniss screams back until both collapse into the only thing that makes mourning change shape: time. She writes lists of every act of kindness she remembers, a ledger to balance the other one. Peeta plants primroses. They build habits out of small, good decisions: hunting, baking, watching for nightmares, and holding each other through them. The world grows around them because the world always does when it can. The epilogue refuses triumphalism and offers continuity. Years later, Katniss sits in a field, a baby on her lap, Peeta nearby with their older child. She explains quietly that nightmares still come and that she plays a game to survive them, listing every good thing she can remember. There are far worse games to play. The line is the film's thesis distilled. The only durable antidote to spectacle and terror is memory disciplined into meaning, repeated until it holds. Themes the finale resolves and leaves humming. Cycles of power: killing Snow wasn't enough. Stopping Coin was required to break the loop. Ethics versus victory: Gale's necessary tactics become indistinguishable from the enemy. Katniss chooses a line that costs her him. The reclamation of story: real or not real, as a way to heal propaganda's damage. The end of the games: not in an arena but in a vote, a refusal, and an arrow that redirected the narrative. Mockingjay Part 2 closes the arc it began with: a starving girl in the woods. Survival widened to responsibility, responsibility narrowed to one terrible choice, and then a long, ordinary labor called living. Panem will argue about the Mockingjay for generations: murderer or savior, symbol or citizen. The film leaves her where the books did, neither statue nor saint, but a person who kept a promise to protect those she loved as far as love and luck and a bow could carry her, and who learned, barely in time, that the point of ending a game is to make sure no one has to play it again.